breaking didn't just mean news this time, it meant rupture. The moment Angel Reese stepped away from the hardwood and into Hollywood, the WNBA's worst fear became reality in real time. This wasn't load management. This wasn't off-season exploration. This was a star athlete choosing anything but basketball because basketball, right now, isn't there for her. Angel Reese didn't leave because she wanted to. She left because the league left her first. Behind the scenes, the union collapsed, free agency froze, contracts vanished, expansion rules never arrived, scouting departments went dark, and while fans were waiting for signings in Super 8 teams, players were waiting for paychecks, clarity, and permission to work. None of it came. So Angel Reese made the move no one wanted to admit was coming. She pivoted. Netflix, lights, cameras, a plan B that suddenly looked more stable than the WNBA itself. Let that sink. In one of the league's most visible stars, couldn't find certainty in the league she helped market. And when she posted it herself, no PR spin, no league framing it, hit harder than any press release ever could. This wasn't rebellion. It was survival. The terrifying part, Angel Reese isn't alone. She's just the first domino fans can see. If a player of her profile is forced to leave basketball to stay afloat, what does that say about everyone else stuck in limbo? This isn't a pause. This isn't drama. This is a warning flare. Because once stars start leaving the game to find work, the chaos isn't coming. It's already here. Angel Reese didn't arrive at this moment by accident. Her journey into the WNBA was built on noise, pressure, expectation, and sacrifice long before the union ever collapsed. From college stardom to national headlines, she became more than a player. She became a symbol, a face of a new era, a marketing engine, a lightning rod. And with that came a weight the league quietly relied on, but never fully protected. From the moment she entered the professional ranks, Angel Reese was asked to do more than just play basketball. She was asked to sell the league, promote the product, carry storylines, feed algorithms, be visible, be vocal, be available. She embraced it, understanding that in the WNBA, exposure often replaces security. Endorsements mattered, branding mattered, side hustles weren't optional, they were survival tools. But behind the cameras, the foundation was already cracking. The collective bargaining agreement, the very structure meant to protect players, began to stall. Negotiations dragged. Promises floated without time. Free agency became a question mark. Expansion teams were announced with no rules. Roster protections were whispered but never confirmed. Players trained without knowing where they'd play. Veterans waited. Rookies panicked. And the silence from the league offices grew louder by the week. Angel Reese was not passive in this moment. She spoke openly. She aligned with players. She echoed the frustration many felt but couldn't say publicly. If they don't give us what we want, we sit out. It wasn't a threat, it was exhaustion speaking. It was someone staring at a system that asked for loyalty without offering stability in return. Emotionally, that takes a toll. Imagine grinding your entire life for one league, only to reach it and find the doors half closed. Imagine being told the league is growing, while contracts are frozen. Imagine being one of the most talked about players in the sport, yet having no clarity about your own future. That contradiction eats at you, slowly, quietly, until something breaks. And for Angel Reese, the breaking point wasn't anger, it was realism. She began looking outward. Not because she wanted to abandon basketball, but because basketball had stopped moving. Opportunities off the court became lifelines, not luxuries. Acting, media, entertainment. These weren't distractions. They were insurance policies against a league stuck in neutral. When the Netflix opportunity surfaced, it wasn't reckless, it was calculated. She had hinted at it before. She understood her reach, her presence, her marketability beyond the court. And in a moment where the WNBA could not guarantee her work, she chose certainty over hope. That decision didn't come without conflict. Angel Reese built her identity around basketball, around competition, around the grind. Walking away, even temporarily, wasn't victory. It was surrender to reality. And that's what makes this moment so heavy. Because emotionally, this isn't a star chasing Hollywood, it's a player confronting the terrifying truth that the league she fought to elevate might not be ready to support the very players holding it up. And when that realization sets in, you don't rage, you pivot. But the consequences of that pivot were only beginning to surface the moment Angel Reese's Netflix announcement hit timelines. The conversation shifted instantly. This wasn't just a celebrity update, it was a flare shot straight into the middle of a league already on edge. Fans weren't asking about her role, Executives weren't congratulating her. Players weren't surprised. Everyone was asking the same question in different ways. Why does one of the WNBA's biggest names have to leave basketball to keep her career moving? That question exposed the real conflict the league had been trying to outrun. Behind closed doors, the WNBA was frozen. Free agency wasn't just slow, it was effectively dead. No contracts, no agreements, no clarity. Teams couldn't recruit, players couldn't plan. Expansion franchises existed in name only, with no finalized rules, no protection lists, no draft structure. It was chaos disguised as patience. And the longer it dragged on, the more dangerous it became. Angel Reese's pivot didn't cause the crisis, it revealed it. The first shocking twist wasn't that she left, it was that she had to. The league that marketed growth, momentum, and record-breaking attention couldn't guarantee work for its own stars. While public-facing narratives celebrated progress, the internal machinery had stalled completely. The union negotiations collapsed into silence. Deadlines came and went. Optimistic timelines quietly disappeared. What was supposed to be a negotiation turned into a standoff with no off-ramp. Players felt it immediately. Training without purpose, conditioning without context, preparation without destination. Veterans worried about wasted prime years. Younger players feared momentum slipping away before it ever solidified. And while the league waited, life didn't. Rent was still due. Careers still moved forward elsewhere. Windows don't pause just because negotiations do. That's where Angel Reese stood when the call came. Netflix didn't ask her to abandon basketball. They offered stability, structure, a contract, a timeline, something the WNBA couldn't provide at that moment. And in one move, the contrast became impossible to ignore. Hollywood could guarantee her work faster than professional basketball could. That realization rattled the league. Because of Angel Reese, one of the most visible, marketable, and talked about players in the sport, couldn't rely on the WNBA for certainty. What did that mean for everyone else? The message was chilling. This wasn't a fringe player looking for attention. This was a cornerstone choosing security over waiting indefinitely. The league's response was silence. No emergency address. No transparent update. No acknowledgement of the optics. And that silence became fuel. Social media exploded. Fans split. Some applauded her adaptability. Others panicked about what this signaled for the league's future. Analysts stopped talking hypotheticals and started using words like lockout, strike, and lost season. Then came the deeper twist. Angel Reese wasn't alone. She was just early. Whispers spread about other players quietly lining up alternatives. Overseas leagues, short-term contracts, media roles, startup leagues, anything to avoid sitting still. The WNBA wasn't just losing momentum, it was risking a talent drift. Where players learned they couldn't afford to wait for the system to fix itself. The irony cut deep. Angel Reese had once publicly supported the idea of sitting out if players weren't treated fairly. She had spoken boldly about leverage, about unity, about forcing change. Now, that same stance collided with reality. Sitting out wasn't leverage anymore, it was unemployment. And in that gap between principle and survival, she made a choice that changed the narrative. Overnight, this wasn't defiance, it was adaptation under pressure. The first shocking twist wasn't Angel Reese leaving the WNBA. It was the realization that the WNBA had created conditions where leaving made more sense than staying. And once that truth surfaced, there was no putting it back, because the chaos wasn't theoretical anymore. It had a face. Once Angel Reese stepped away, the chaos didn't slow down, it multiplied. What looked like one player making a smart pivot quickly turned into a stress test the WNBA was not prepared to pass. Every unresolved issue that had been buried under optimistic headlines surged to the surface all at once, and the league's fragile balance started cracking in public. The second major twist wasn't just that more players were considering exit strategies, it was how deep the paralysis actually went. Behind the scenes, teams admitted they couldn't function. General managers were stuck guessing. Coaches had no rosters to plan around. Scouts didn't know who they were scouting for. The expansion draft, the symbol of league growth, became a punchline. 2 new teams were announced, yet no one could explain how they'd be built. Protection limits were rumors. Draft timelines were guesses. Free agency windows were completely undefined. The league wasn't moving forward, it was spinning in place, and then the calendar made things worse. March loomed. With it came women's college basketball's biggest moment of the year, March Madness. The showcase, the pipeline, the future. But now, The WNBA's unresolved free agency threatened to collide directly with it. Instead of celebrating the next generation, teams would be scrambling to sign veterans. Instead of scouting games, front offices would be negotiating contracts. Instead of spotlighting growth, the league would be competing with itself for attention. That's when insiders started using a different word: unmanageable. Even if a CBA agreement magically appeared overnight, the damage was already done. Approval processes, implementation delays, roster logistics, expansion sequencing, none of it could be compressed safely. The league had stacked too many dominoes too close together, and now there wasn't enough time to stop them from falling. Angel Reese's move suddenly looked prophetic. What initially felt like an individual decision now read like a warning signal. She didn't jump early, she jumped just in time. Her acting role wasn't about chasing fame, it was about refusing to be stuck while the league figured itself out. And as that reality set in, the narrative flipped. The question wasn't why did Angel Reese leave, it became why is the league putting players in a position where leaving is logical. Then came the most uncomfortable twist of all. Fans began to realize that the NBA's stars were carrying risk the league wasn't. Players were absorbing uncertainty, careers were being paused, earning windows were shrinking. Meanwhile, leadership timelines stayed vague, statements stayed polished, and accountability stayed missing. The imbalance became impossible to defend. Angel Reese posting her Netflix role herself casually, confidently, only amplified the contrast. No drama, no apology, no explanation, just movement. While the league stood still, she moved forward, and that visual haunted everything. It showed players what survival looked like outside the system. It showed fans how little control the league actually had over its own momentum. Suddenly, the strike talk felt less theoretical and more inevitable, because leverage only exists when players can afford to wait. And now, waiting meant stagnation. The union collapse hadn't just delayed basketball, it had exposed a deeper flaw. The league's structure relied on players sacrificing stability in the name of progress, and when progress stalled, that sacrifice became unbearable. The escalation was no longer about Angel Reese, it was about what happens when a league asks for patience it hasn't earned. With every passing day, the risk grew larger, not just of a lost season, but of a fractured identity. A league that had fought for legitimacy now faced a moment where its stars were redefining success elsewhere. And once players learn that their careers don't have to revolve around one system, control becomes impossible to reclaim. Angel Reese didn't start the fire, but her exit showed just how fast it could spread, and the fallout was coming next. The public reaction hit like a shockwave. Within hours of Angel Reese's announcement, timelines fractured into chaos. Fans weren't just debating a career move, they were confronting the possibility that the WNBA, at its most visible moment, was unraveling in plain sight. What should have been an off-season filled with signings, super team rumors, and expansion excitement turned into a digital autopsy of a league stuck in limbo. Some fans rallied behind Angel Reese immediately. They saw courage, adaptability, a player refusing to let her prime years evaporate while negotiations dragged on. They applauded her for protecting her future, for leveraging her platform, for doing what any professional would do when their employer couldn't provide certainty. To them, Reese wasn't abandoning the league, she was exposing it. Others felt something closer to panic. If Angel Reese could step away this easily, what was stopping anyone else? That fear rippled fast. Comment sections filled with the same uneasy question: who's next? Every rumor became amplified. Every quiet social media post from another player was dissected. Silence itself became suspicious. The fanbase wasn't just reacting to Reese, they were bracing for collapse. Media outlets tried to spin it carefully, but the emotional undercurrent was impossible to contain. Analysts spoke in measured tones while using loaded phrases: unstable, uncertain, delicate moment. Former players were more blunt. They talked about lost seasons, about careers shortened by waiting, about how fragile momentum really is when it isn't backed by structure. Inside locker rooms, the mood reportedly shifted from frustration to realism. Players didn't lash out publicly, they didn't need to. Reese had already said enough by acting. Her move validated private conversations that had been happening for weeks, about Plan B, about overseas options, about whether loyalty without timelines was still loyalty, or just risk. The league office remained quiet. No emergency press conference, no direct response to the optics. That silence didn't calm anything, it magnified the tension. Fans interpreted it as detachment. Players interpreted it as confirmation that clarity wasn't coming soon. And in the absence of leadership messaging, the narrative filled itself. Social media did what it always does in a vacuum. Clips resurfaced. Old quotes were replayed. Reese's previous comments about sitting out became centerpieces of debate. Some accused her of hypocrisy. Others pointed out the obvious. Sitting out only works if there's something to return to. Without a functioning system, protest becomes pause, and pause becomes loss. Emotionally, this moment hit deeper than box scores or contracts. It struck at belief. The belief that the league was ready for its stars. The belief that growth meant security. The belief that players wouldn't have to choose between visibility and stability. Angel Reese's exit cracked that belief wide open. For younger fans, the fallout felt confusing. They had watched the league gain attention, sell out arenas, dominate headlines. How could it be in chaos now? For longtime supporters, the pain was sharper. They had seen versions of this before. Progress interrupted, momentum squandered, hard-earned gains threatened by structural failures. And hovering over it all was the emotional truth. No one wanted to say out loud, this wasn't about one player leaving. It was about what her leaving revealed, that the league's brightest moments were being powered by individuals willing to absorb uncertainty, and that once those individuals stopped absorbing it, everything shook. Angel Reese didn't spark outrage by shouting, she sparked it by walking, and the league felt every step. Just when it seemed like Angel Reese's move to Hollywood was the loudest alarm the WNBA could face, a darker realization began to surface. This wasn't an exit, it was a test run. Sources close to league operations quietly admitted what fans had started piecing together on their own. Angel Reese never formally quit basketball. She didn't file retirement paperwork. She didn't shut the door. She left it cracked intentionally. Because what she's really waiting for isn't a script call or a red carpet premiere. She's waiting to see if the WNBA is worth coming back to. That's the twist nobody in league offices wants to acknowledge. Reese's Netflix role isn't a detour. It's leverage. By stepping away at the peak of her relevance, she's proving something terrifying for the league, that its stars don't need it the way it needs them. Every headline she generates without touching a basketball exposes a painful imbalance. Every viral post from a set instead of a gym raises the same question executives can't answer. What happens if more players realize this? And here's where it gets even more dangerous. Behind the scenes, whispers have begun about players quietly aligning their timelines, not publicly, not with statements, but with actions. Endorsements renewed without league ties, overseas agents reactivated, entertainment meetings taken just in case. Reese isn't alone anymore. She's just the first one bold enough to move. The league's silence suddenly looks strategic, rather than calm, because responding to Angel Reese would mean acknowledging the truth. The union collapse didn't just pause operations, it shattered trust. And trust, once broken, doesn't come back with a press release. There's also a growing fear among insiders that Reese's pivot could permanently reshape the power dynamic. If she returns after a new CBA, she comes back with more autonomy, more leverage, and proof that walking away didn't hurt her brand, it strengthened it. That sets a precedent the league has never had to deal with before. But if she doesn't return, that's the nightmare scenario no one is prepared for, because if one of the most marketable faces of the league can build momentum elsewhere, the idea of WNBA first, everything else second, collapses entirely. The league stops being the center of gravity, it becomes an option. And options are dangerous when stability is already fragile. Fans are starting to sense it. The conversation has shifted from when will the season start, to who's actually coming back. That's not a scheduling problem, that's an existential one. Angel Reese hasn't given answers. She hasn't teased a return. She hasn't denied one either. Every move feels calculated. Every silence feels intentional. And that uncertainty is louder than any protest could be. Because now, the question isn't whether the WNBA can survive a delayed season. The question is whether it can survive a future where its biggest stars have already learned how to live without it. Angel Reese didn't burn the bridge. She simply showed everyone where it leads, and the league is standing at the edge, hoping she turns back before someone else follows her across. This moment isn't just another WNBA headline, it's a warning shot. Angel Reese stepping away didn't happen in a vacuum, and it didn't happen by accident. It happened because pressure, silence, and uncertainty finally collided. And now the league, the players, and the fans are all standing in the aftermath asking the same question: what comes next? So now it's on you. Do you believe Angel Reese? did the right thing by protecting her future when the league couldn't offer clarity? Or do you think this move risks opening a door the WNBA may not be able to close? Is this a smart pivot, or the beginning of a talent drain that could change women's basketball forever? Drop your take in the comments, because this debate isn't staying quiet. Read what other fans are saying. Argue it out. Defend your side. This is where the real conversation is happening now, not behind closed doors, not in boardrooms, but right here. And if you want real, unfiltered breakdowns of WNBA power moves, league politics, player leverage, and moments that change the sport in real time, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because this story isn't over. The CBA clock is still ticking. More decisions are coming, and the next star who makes a move might shock everyone even more. Stay locked in. You won't want to miss what happens next.